have gone live. Yeah, good afternoon to one and all who joined me, and namaskar to Sarala, Animesh. I am Shivani Gupta, Principal Mayoor School, Sri Ganganagar, Rajasthan, and I take the opportunity to thank Entab, Nimisha, and Ashmita for having coordinated with me, and Entab for providing me this opportunity to talk with all of you today. So yes, namaskar, Rekha, Nimesh, and Minakshi. What a thing to have all of you with me today, and I look forward to more people joining me. Today's day becomes so important because it sounds so ironical, 50th anniversary, and we are in a lockdown talk, the COVID, the corona. I am not saying we ignore it. I'm not saying that we get over it, but we've got to live through it. California, killed of marine law, and the Senator Lord Nelson 1969 on the first anniversary he constituted April. So yes, what I would want to say is that let us adults also be aware that our children are equally facing a tough time, and if we choose to think that they are young, they are children, they wouldn't understand this, we are mistaken. But broaching upon what I have thought for today is encouraging questioning in the classroom. This is a topic I wish to take up because lockdown notwithstanding, questioning is happening even in online classrooms, and we educators, academicians are observing that. To recount, to give one question that I had to answer, and it was so important that my life depended on it. I had only 1 hour to answer it. I would spend 55 minutes finding that question, that most important question on which my life depended. And if I found that right question, it will take me only 5 minutes to answer it. Furthermore, he also stated elsewhere that most of us teachers waste our time finding or to discover what the pupil does not know. And whereas the true art of questioning is to discover what the pupil already knows or is capable of knowing. Great man, Einstein. Okay, so what I'm saying is that Einstein said, I've never stopped questioning. I carry that child in me who questions, and that is why I could unravel the mysteries and marvels of nature. And teachers, why I have recalled or repeated his phrase that we spend a lot of time in asking questions to discover what the pupil does not know is because it is our questioning, the pattern which we take up, actually inspires our students to learn the art of questioning. So today I'm going to focus on two things in my talk. One is how to encourage questioning in the classroom, and also the skill of questioning. Questioning is an entirely different thing, whereas the skill that needs to be developed, whether in our own selves or whether in the kids, is very important because the right questions lead to learning, which is more meaningful, more in depth, and it is the foundation of all further knowledge. We would all agree that the more we question, whether we adults, the young children, and I'm repeatedly asking us adults to be more careful about our questioning because students learn from us, and both the teachers, the parents, and all the adults who play a meaningful role in the life of the child hold this responsibility to encourage the sense of inquiry, to teach the children to ask meaningful questions. And questioning is important because it inculcates sense of inquiry, of course, and more importantly, it ensures that students are engaged with the content that is being taught or that is being discussed. More importantly, a teacher, a pedagogue, an educator, an academician needs to encourage questioning amongst children of all levels is to create that interactive environment, which is the bedrock of classroom transactions and important for learning of the students, wherein the students are actively seeking information. Because as we all understand, there could be one form of learning which is passive learning, unidirectional, flowing from the teacher to the student. On the other hand, when the students actively seek information, the teacher also goes beyond herself, beyond the content, and ensures that the circle of learning is complete, the conceptual clarity is complete in the mind of her learners. And of course, questioning is important for critical and analytical thinking that we all aspire to inculcate in our youngsters. So furthermore, I would talk about the kinds of questions that we as teachers must ask, and we as teachers must encourage the students also to learn to ask. The first kind of questions which usually teachers of the pre-primary group ask are categorized as thin questions. Now, this term thin questions refers to the questions demanding a yes or no answer. Usually, teachers of classes nursery, KG1 and KG2 ask questions which require answer in monosyllables, a yes or a no. But eventually, I believe that as the children move even to classes KG1 and KG2 nurseries, they are inducting, they are stepping into academics. But as they are at the end of the session and enter into KG1 and KG2, the teachers must move on to more meaningful, in-depth questions. The second category of questions, the small ones, and of course, in the primary and middle school classes, the second kind of questions WH questions: what, when, where, who, why, and of course how. So these questions require answers more than one word, and that is why they fall under the category of thick questions. But sometimes if I say, what did the boy say, and the students have a propensity for answering in one word, he said good morning, so that's also meaningless, because such questions neither help the student learn the art of expression in a complete coherent manner, nor the questions force the child to think. These are merely questions of recall. So very soon we must, and trust me, teachers, even the primary school teachers, the teachers of classes 1 to 5 can move on to these questions, which are the questions of higher reasoning. They are the what if questions. And these are hypothetical questions that encourage the students to think further, more than what the textbook asks them to. And it's beyond the preparation for the tests and assessments that we have in our schools. So, yes, talking about these what if questions, and trust me, many of us teachers, in some class time, say in a month, once in a month, we would be coming out with such insights that will make us appreciate the capabilities of our students beyond their age, because a thinking mind is always sticking inside a child of even class KG1, KG2, 1. Of course, nursery is very small. As I've always said, that my focus area right now is classes 1 onwards. So, and I'm addressing this to primary teachers more importantly, because primary teachers are saddled with the task of concept building amongst their students, and as well as the dual task of encouraging them to question in the class, encouraging them to open up in the class and speak out in the class. And that is why teachers of grades 1 to 5 shoulder the massive responsibility of encouraging questioning in their classroom, because it is them who create those personality traits in the students that make them come out and question and ask and express themselves. So yes, what if questions could be like, if we've completed content in, say, English or a science, or for that matter, social science. Social science lends itself very beautifully to what if. So one can always say, ask, what if Ashoka did not win the Kalinga War, or Ashoka did not denounce the world, or what if Babur did not come to India? So what I'm trying to say is, the what if questions fall under a technique called possibilism, and then the children explore the possibilities of what all could have happened. And it's a very insightful, interactive time when the children focus on what if questions. For that matter, even science teachers can ask what if. So what if plants did not have photosynthesis will be more meaningful than making the student simply learn that photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their food in the presence of sunlight and chlorine. So of course, that is important. What is photosynthesis is important. But to furthermore embed that learning, to incite that critical thinking, the students are 3, 4, they can be encouraged to think on what if questions. That is, what if the students can be asked, what if the plants did not carry out photosynthesis? So I'll tell you a tool here, teachers, because you would always say there are children, no matter how much we encourage them, they do not open up and they do not ask questions. Teachers, here I would make one observation, that the moment I myself, the moment we complete a content, we ask everybody to wait for a period of 30 seconds or so, or there is a very nice technique that can be used. I'm not professing that the technique be used very much, because then you would complain that I'm not able to complete the syllabus. But nonetheless, the technique of using index cards. What you can do is prepare small cards, blank cards, and you can distribute them in your class in case you want to encourage questioning. It's a very effective tool which I have myself used in my classes sometimes. So these index cards are meant for the students to put up their questions, and you can define these questions on certain days ki, okay, you would be putting up what if questions in your index cards today. So all the students will come out with what if this happened, and you will get some very, very outstanding ideas, wherein it would be revealed to you that children all inventions have been because of flights of fancy, you would agree. So these index cards can be utilized once in a month. So you can encourage the students to pose questions on a particular concept at hand that you've completed. You can ask them to put up questions on what they are expecting from the subsequent syllabus, that content that you are about to handle, or what if questions, the questions which are open ended, which will initiate discussion in the class, and which will roll the ball. All right. And that could be very good exercise to bring a cohesiveness in the class. You could go ahead and handle these index cards to your advantage by dividing the class into groups, first reading out the questions, or taking them away with you and reading them out and then handling them the next day. You could also, put up a small reward or something for the best question that you deem. Of course, you've got to be impartial, unbiased. So index card come across as very beautiful exercise for the children who hesitate to speak up in the class. And furthermore, I would also want to now move on to how you can encourage children to speak up. As we all understand, teachers, the children of class 1 to 5 are just blooming out, and most of them feel very hesitant. So first lies up to us to create a safe environment in the classroom wherein the children are unafraid to put across their thoughts and doubts. But furthermore, let me tell you, knowledge is knowing the answers. Intelligence is posing the right questions. So, yes, you've got to create that encouraging environment wherein the teacher instills that confidence into the child that he or she would not be ridiculed. So, teacher acts as a moderator, and then she can encourage the children. Now encouragement is something which takes time. Sometimes even if you've made a child stand and you're constantly encouraging the child might hesitate to speak out, and eventually you'll lose patience and you'll calculate in your mind that you've given 2 4 minutes to the child, and so now somebody else should be focused upon. So that child probably is a ready case for index cards. And if your class has many students of this kind, then index cards that you must go back to. Okay, so herein also lies up to you to make your children comfortable. Sometimes, you can also go ahead and change the seating of the class. Yes, being a principal, I have known principals who insist that whatever the seating is there should be maintained. But sometimes in junior classes, see, if you have that kind of time, and we do are able to take out time, it is more on our spirit. So if we move the desks a little and kind of create groups or circles, and we also sit down, because the teacher comes across as a very intimidating individual in junior classes, despite she trying all her best because of her size, her height, and the children are tiny. Trust me, when I move to junior classes, I feel very huge because the children are so tiny, they are delicate. So, yes, the children can take the liberty to sit down during these interactive times, but of course, she's not to lose a grip on her class. And so, the first and foremost requirement is to create that safe, encouraging environment. And the second thing which she can do to make her classes more interactive are to praise all questions. And here, the teachers of primary, middle, and senior school should also be careful that only one child is not monopolizing the class or hogging all the limelight in his or her private schools and middle class strata. We encourage our children to talk so much that sometimes I wonder they've even forgotten to listen and patiently wait for their turn. So, because we as parents also keep encouraging our children to uh, talk so much. So, yes, that word that I use, that you got to act as a moderator. So, you got to praise the questions, you got to distribute the opportunities to children to ask the question. Rather than being biased towards a person or towards a child or a student. And in younger classes, you must accept all questions. In senior classes, here also there's a debate always in the head of the teacher, whether in the mind of the teacher, whether she should complete the content and then take the questions, or she must take the questions as she moves along. Because at times, when the child poses a question midway, probably you are already about to answer that in your next segment of teaching. So, what I have observed in the junior classes, that is my personal opinion, that in junior classes, what I've observed is if a child gets stuck on a question that has popped up in his mind midway through the content, he or she should be allowed to air it out. Because unless that question gets answered, the child would not be able to focus on the subsequent content or teaching. On the other hand, in senior classes, slowly students also groom themselves to hold their horses and have patience. But nonetheless, if a child is constantly making an effort to ask, you must oblige. Yes, K. Singer Varalu is also asking, how about group discussion in the class at early stage after sixth tangent? Of course, group discussion is a discussion. Here I'm focusing on encouraging questioning. Group discussion would be an immensely beautiful exercise if you would divide the class into, initially you give first half the time to pose questions, and the second half of the class to answer, and then you reverse the roles. The second group then asks the questions and the first group answers. So So yes, that gels very beautifully with the concept of encouraging questioning in the classroom. So we can always go ahead and have group discussions, which are nonetheless very effective exercises to bring out children to speak. But once again, in a group, go ahead and have group discussions, which are nonetheless very effective exercises to bring out children to speak. But once again, in a group discussion or group discussion come questioning exercise, the teacher must act as a moderator, because the children who are able to speak up, who are open enough, moderator, because the children who are able to speak up, who are open enough, or they consume all the time, and the hesitant ones still keep quiet. So yes, that is where the teacher's role becomes so important, and these are the things that you need to take care of, which is why this session I'm taking that of course we know all of these things, but it's just a reminder that these are the things which are still pertinent and they matter most, because education, after all, if we untangle it, is one-on-one interaction between the teacher and the taught. Then the next thing that the teacher needs to take care of, or to teach her kids to encourage questioning in the classroom, is teach how to ask questions. Now, how to ask questions is very important. How to ask questions uh, is on two focus points. One is teach the students or encourage the students to ask questions the way it needs to be asked, with a focus upon the choice of words, the body language, the attitude of the students. Many a times I notice students asking questions for the sake of asking, because in some of the junior classes they've been taught that you must ask questions. So they ask questions for the sake of asking, and their manner is irreverent. They are not seeking for answers, but the question is put across as a show off. So do not encourage that question, but of course, you are not to snub the child. You can defer answering that question. Or you can politely tell the child that we will handle that question later, or probably it will get answered as I teach. Then you've got to teach the children to formulate the questions. So this is one area of teaching students how to ask questions. Another area of focus translates or transcends directly from you. That is, questions need to be relevant. They have to be clear, stimulate thinking, and one question should be single dimensional, usually in the junior classes. That is, what answer is seeked, it should ask that. So yes, this also comes from you, that when a question is asked and if it is not worded out properly by a student, it lies up to you to help the student to formulate it better by asking, okay, A, did you mean that? Or are you trying to ask this? So that, and encourage the student to reformulate the question if it is not coming out coherently. So teaching how to ask questions, is very, very important exercise, which should be consciously taken up by the teachers of classes 1 to 5, and of course 6 to 8 also. Sometimes the students need to be taught, because as the content grows, and teachers herein, once again, I would emphasize that you've also got to move ahead from taking static answers from students, that is, answers of recall. Try to put in questions which stimulates thinking, which encourage students to think about, think aloud, discuss. So yes, that is one more exercise that can be done with children, wherein reasoning-based questions are encouraged. Then whenever, and questioning time is a sacrosanct time, teacher, in your classroom, which all of us practice, but we are not so serious about. So in an average classroom time of 35 to 40 minutes, one must definitely keep 5 to 7 minutes to take questions, and be equitable in distribution of opportunities, so that if a student has not, because by and large in 5 minutes you'll be able to take questions from 3 or 4 students, or at best five, but the You could use the question time to even encourage others to answer. So make a point that you encourage students to speak up in the class. So to sum up, you've got to create a safe, encouraging environment in the classroom. And by accepting questions, making the child comfortable and praising questions. But a more important exercise is to teach the students how to ask questions, questions that are relevant, purposeful, worded out well, and the student means right when he's asking questions. The purposeful, worded out well, and the student means right when he's asking questions. The need for answer to that question is a genuine one, because as I said, students also need to be taught the skill of listening. And you must always end with a student reflection time. Now, student reflection time is very important because learning gets depth when it is chewed upon, when it is metabolized, so to say. So, reflection time, my talk today, and yes, Animesh is recalling that I remember during my school days, group activities created a sense of motivation in every year, and the so-called backbenchers also actively participated and made remarkable effort. Very truly said, Animesh, this does happen all the time when the teachers are careful to encourage the backbenchers. Trust me, but I was a backbencher because I was very tall, right? And I was then I would say I was an anomalous backbencher because I was not backbencher, but I was a decently okay backbencher in terms of my academic skills. So yes, the people who shy away from talking out are encouraged consciously by the teachers, but it has to flow naturally. You know, I always question. Sometimes parents come and tell me my child is an introvert and he or she doesn't speak up. So I ask them, why do you want them to speak up? Some people have to listen as well, right? So what I'm trying to say is the child who doesn't speak up does not mean that he is any less. He might be having a very bright mind into that head of his or her. So it's just that because once again, going back to Einstein did not speak for 3 years, and his 3 years of age, the first sentence was that after 3 years of age, the first sentence that he spoke up was, "The soup is very hot." And then later on, when he was asked, "Why did you not speak up?" Because he said the entire sentence, "The soup is very hot." So he was asked later on, "Why did you not speak up?" He said, "I never felt the need to speak." So the children who are not speaking up does not mean that they are dumb or they are lacking, right? And yes, questions deeply says question on and help them realize in due course. Very truly said, Deepti. I so agree with you. Upon them, finally, teachers and to reflect upon them. Finally, teachers and people who've joined me, I would want to ask you: are you lucky people in whose class the students asked, "Why COVID? Why this lockdown? Why am I supposed to study online?" If you were privileged enough to have your students ask you this, trust me, you're doing something right. And if none of your students ask this, we should wonder. It leaves us questioning ourselves. Why did our students not ask this question? What if this lockdown did not happen? What if this COVID did not happen? Probably we would have gone ahead and carried on the way we were damaging our earth. And I do not know. What if we carry on like this even after this pandemic goes over, right? And so the question is, what if we go back to where we were before the lockdown? What if we improve our ways? Even if we improve our ways, how long would it take to heal the earth? So yes, classes of primary school and primary grades should be asking. Otherwise, we are actually raising kids who accept things as they are in the books. But then we have to raise children who think beyond the box, so to say, because beyond the box is a phrase which we used to death. So, yes, who are thinking beyond the textbooks, what the textbooks lay out for them. So the children should have been asking these questions: why this COVID-19? And we adults should make an effort to provide them age appropriate answers. So yes, COVID-19, Lawrence Zacharias is saying COVID-19 is helping us to understand where to improve, and upskilling and reskilling can also be done now. Yes, upskilling and reskilling is to be done, but I always have maintained for myself that it is a lockdown, not a learning contest as well. So yes, we've got to be sensitive towards our kids. uh, so what Suresh is asking, speaking child can make questions in the classroom. So what do we do first to encourage them to speak first in normal discussions? Yes, the teacher has to act as a moderator, and she has to create that non-threatening environment. And after a point, if the child doesn't see, this is where we need to discern whether the child is a listener or a speaker. Some children just listen, which is also a virtue. And sometimes, when five children have talked and then they talk and they have something very meaningful to talk. So, yes, every child will not jump up to the opportunity of speaking first. Some children just take time. But yes, if a child that you notice has been noticeably quiet, conspicuously quiet for many classes, or for many opportunities, he's not availed of them and not spoken out or put up a question or participated in a discussion, then of course it lies up to you to probably talk to the child separately beyond the classroom. So this is where we teachers have to be conscious. And teachers, I agree, in our day-to-day rush to complete the syllabus, the paperwork, the seniors, banging your heads, you are required, you are kind of checking in with the teaching, learning of the child and what is happening in the classroom. So yes, that is to be taken up consciously, that is to be carried out consciously, and there is no shortcut to it. And there's no excuse. I would never excuse myself if I fail to encourage a child, or if I fail to notice that a child wanted to ask me something and I could not satisfy the question, or the opportunity was not granted to the child. So yes, create safe environment, encouraging environment. And even in senior classes, we notice kids who hesitate with questions. So that training of the mind is also important uh, for children to come up with valid, meaningful, purposeful questions. Right? So this is where our role as teachers, educators lies, that we encourage the skill, encourage questioning, and then inculcate the skill of questioning, that we encourage questioning and then inculcate the skill of questioning into our learners. And here I would end my talk. A prudent question is one half of the knowledge. This is a quote by Francis Bacon that I have been living by. And do not hesitate to question yourself. Do not hesitate to encourage the children to question. And yes, at the same time, we are required thinking and listening. So we as educators, before I wind up, ma'am, can we say that there is any actual difference between introvert and extrovert children? Yes. There is no difference as far as I'm concerned, and what I have read and observed my kids. Children are introvert only up till the time when they don't have that comfort level, or when they don't need an audience or a friend. with whom they can connect, they share ideas, they are on the same wavelength, what I would want to say. Because sometimes in a party, I would not want to talk to anyone because I'm not connecting with anyone, and I'm just there to fulfill a social obligation. So I would come across as an introvert to hundreds of people. But then probably when I'm with my friends, I'm the one who is setting the ball rolling and talking 19 to a dozen. So to those set of people, I would come across as extrovert. So there is no real distinction between an introvert or an extrovert. As far as students are concerned, when we grow up, our personalities can be introvert or extrovert, but that will be at a very deeper level, wherein people are not sharing their problems, and their stresses and tensions with anyone. So that is another problem, wherein they've not been able to make connections at an intimate level, wherein they can share that comfort of sharing their innermost thoughts and dilemmas and stresses. So, but in a classroom, children are shaping up, and by and large, I feel that an introvert is an extrovert in the right company. Okay, so I would want to end my session here. Thank you so much for being there, listening to me, and I hope what I have talked is found to be meaningful by the audience. And you can mail me in case you want to connect with me at shivanig512@gmail.com. I repeat, shivanig512@gmail.com. Thank you so much, audience, for being with me. Have a beautiful day, and we've got many more days of the lockdown. So, yes, happy reading, happy thinking, happy family time, and connecting with each other. God bless all. Bye bye.